Hi, this is Yvette Francino, and I'm here today with Jonathan Stalls, who is a very inspirational figure for me. He started Walk2Connect and has a lot of other efforts. So I'm going to just hand it over to him to tell you about himself and all the things that he's working on.
Right on. Well, thank you, Yvette. It's really good to be here. Really good to be sharing and opening around this theme. There's so much to say. There's so much around this topic. So I will just, in a nutshell, I spent 242 days walking across the country in 2010. And that really, that experience amongst being an artist, amongst being someone who moved every 2 years. So as a kid, I moved all over the country every 2 years and was starting in new schools and new neighborhoods. Being an artist that was always trying to express and get creative with how to move into different spaces and how to create different things. And so all of this came together as I started this long 242-day walk across the country. And when all of that was happening, where I was seeking a lot of just a lot of my own personal healing and personal connecting to just my life up to that point, but also really seeking to connect with our country, the USA. Having bounced around so many different cities and towns, I felt really disconnected to my own, my roots. I want to know this place better. I don't want to just do it through the lens of an automobile and one building to the next and one school to the next. I want to see it and feel it and struggle with it and learn from it. And so after and through that walk, that became this incredible education for human connection. It just, the people, the families, the different landscapes. And so, yeah, I could be on here for hours talking about that walk, but yeah, that was the jumping off point for just getting creative with this organization called Walk2Connect, which was something I started in kind of end of 2011, where it was, as the name suggests, just these very intentional, simple, but structured group walking events that help, that are focused on connection, helping people to feel like it's easier to just lean into a conversation or get to know somebody who's different than you, get to know somebody who's brand new to you in a more natural and human way. So that just evolved over time and turned into hundreds of walking events all over the place and training walking leaders and really cool partnerships. And then that continues to evolve. And again, I could talk for hours about that. And then as an artist, Intrinsic Paths is really just kind of this ongoing way for me to use my art in the realm of helping us connect with our deeper selves and connect with just what's real in others and how we learn from each other. And so it's just this evolving story of being an artist and helping us connect. So yeah, there's a lot.
That is it. It's a great message. And I know I first saw you on a TED Talk, and I knew then this is a really interesting guy. I have so many questions to ask. And then just coincidentally, you were leading something in, the neighborhood that I was going to that day. And we did sit down and talk for an hour, and I had all kinds of questions about connection, about your walk across America and Walk2Connect. And one of those, I think a lot of us, I know I feel this way, is I want those deep connections, but it's always a little, I don't know what the word is. You have to be vulnerable, or starting that talk with a stranger, especially when you do a Walk2Connect event. There is a sort of a framework around a facilitator who suggests a certain topic or whatever and asks people to pair up and talk. And so that's a lot easier because, that's part of what everybody's aware that you're supposed to be doing. But when you were walking across America, there wasn't like, hey, everybody, we're doing a Walk2Connect thing. You know,
Yeah.
how do you start that conversation and get in deep with somebody that you've just met who doesn't know who you are? You know, is there a method
Yeah.
that you do, or is it just individual for each person? You see a sign in their face about whether or not they want to connect, or how does that work?
It's a good question. Yeah, well, so I would say, I mean, it's so person by person specific sometimes. I mean, you know, and I would, you know, in terms of just how deep or how layered the conversations get, a lot of times, like with Walk2Connect, there's a lot of events that are recurring or like weekly or monthly. And so people over time really get to know each other more, and that trust just builds over time. One of the things, though, that I feel like is consistent with both the cross country walk and with what Walk2Connect just holds in so many ways is it's the our human bodies and our human brains and our human hearts are made, physiologically made, to move this way. And so thinking about, you know, just the kind of the frame of a body moving in a slower and more patient fashion, physiologically alongside someone, shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip, whether they're by foot or on a wheelchair, like there's the actual kind of framing of being side by side. And then there's the moving forward, usually. Sometimes it's not often you're walking backwards in some of these group events. Like you're moving forward. And then you have all of these other elements around you that are natural elements: the sky, big, open, changing colors, clouds, changing, stirring, wind, breeze, trees, these things that speak so much without, you know, it's not always obvious, but there's so much around feeling a little more freed up, less kind of weighted down by whatever might keep us from opening up with each other. So I think the actual physical container of moving in this way is really, it's how we are made to move and evolve, and I think dialogue and move with hard and difficult things, but also with really beautiful creative things and joyful things and spirited things. You know, there's something about what actually happens in the brain that when we move, and just after 20 minutes of walking, the amount of the neural network and how much more elastic it gets, and how much more space starts to expand in the brain, and then how much more blood gets to the heart and to the rest of our body. And so I always like to think of that as, you know, it also opens our capacity to release what's really going on in each of us, but also to listen and learn from what's really going on in someone else in a way that is more generative, more open, more caring, less, you know, if you think just if we're inside of walls and always across the table, there's something combative sometimes about, like, okay, we're like across the table from each other. So even though we're having coffee and we're being friends, we're doing our thing, there's still something like it can feel confrontational to just open up, you know, right away. But if you're moving and you're breathing in a way that just opens all these things up, it's amazing what can naturally come out.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is that the environment and the nature and really influences our ability to kind of not feel that constraint and confined, and helps have that connection with, whether it's with nature or ourselves, or with the person who's next to us, and frees us really to have that more open dialogue.
Yes.
Although and I've really been interested in this topic, that's why I'm doing these podcasts. For myself, I think as a child, I was extremely introverted, very, I mean, as I look back, I mean, I just see so many years in my school years where I went to the library instead of socializing because I just didn't know how to do it well. And I think I was insecure or whatever reasons my personality was just naturally very much of a loner, and terrible stage fright and all that kind of thing. And then as I grew and matured and had jobs and children and everything that did open me up to relationships and people, I recognized how that was really the key in life, that sharing and the relationship and connection with people is key. And so again, that's why I've had such a big interest in learning more about that, because how to do it, I think as you said, it's so individualized, and there are people like you who, maybe it's almost a natural talent to be able to connect, because you again do it not just with people but with nature, and it's sort of maybe a permanent mindset, and so that just invites people to connect with you. And then certainly again over time, and I've been able to be a lot better than I was, but I think that there are a lot of people out there like me that are still introverted, or maybe again kind of very hesitant about communicating with someone that they view as a stranger, and skeptical, or like, what do you want? And or just want to stay with their own thoughts and their headphones, and don't want to connect. So do you just read the body language with people to be able to determine this looks like someone who wants to talk versus this is a person that probably is best left to their own thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, there's so many, oh my gosh, so many trails from that. Thank you. Yeah, I think, at least just from experience, where lots of folks coming on the walks in their own way would, yeah, definitely lean into a more introverted frame, wanting to be like connected maybe with people, but without words, like to have experiences where there's there's less pressure to talk as a form of feeling connected. So I feel like it became pretty clear. And I'm also, I identify as an ambivert, as someone who's kind of this like, I love people, and oh my God, does it exhaust me? So I have kind of both worlds tying into themselves all the time. But I find that, we would get creative a lot, depending on the walking leaders, but just specifically with Walk2Connect, with hosting meditative walking events, silent walking events, or just, naming within the event description that there will be times throughout the walk, like let's say it's a longer distance, or maybe it's a couple hours. There will be time when we just won't be walking next to each other and talk. Like there will be breaks, and we'll say it like, for the introverts, like we'll name it and say, for the folks who are just like, oh, okay, I'm good moving with the group, I don't want to be talking the whole time. It'll literally eat me alive. And so, and that depends on the walking leader and a lot of things, but I have found that really helps, because that's really hard for the extroverts and so there's this really there's a dance between the two, and there's always a lot of learning in both environments, I think. The other thing that comes up as you're sharing some of those things is thinking about, I always think about, because I believe so much in the container of walking or rolling as a pathway, as an actual pathway to feel more connected to others, to oneself, and to the planet. Like it's such a human thing. It's not like it's a new gimmick. It's not like it's just a human thing for us to feel connection in an unhurried bipedal or rolling way. And so so thinking about, even for introverts, how can we, us, just experiment with something we are made to be doing more of,
Mm-hmm.
in the relationships where we already have trust. So families, close friends, neighbors, people that we've already kind of been in relationship with for a while, like to engage or initiate, say, hey, can we go on a walk together? Can we go out and walk together? And maybe it's specifically talking about XYZ. I mean, right now with not even just right now, but like when we think about political environments, religious environments, anything that wants to divide us, anything, you know, to practice, to experiment with people where where we have these differences or these confusions or these gaps in understanding, or someone in our life that we're close to but has a very different life experience, to reach out to them and just say, hey, let's go for a walk. And you might frame it where you're like, I'd really love to talk about this while walking. If you want to meet me at the park, we can do this and we can move. I think like those simple, but sometimes not simple, depending on, you know, our own comfort with it. But just the focus of using human movement as a container, to me, then allows what I've seen both a little bit in myself, but in a lot of folks in my life who are more introverted, is that then as they're doing that as a tool for their friends and family or for specific kinds of conversations, then the social group walks are just, there's a lot more, there's just a little more trust and comfort to go there a little more, because they've kind of exercised that muscle a little bit.
Yeah. I see it a lot in the workplace, more in the workplace recently too. And I know there have been a lot of studies that walks in nature help people be more creative, more productive, and have better relationships at work and all of that kind of thing. So I noticed too in the last few years of working that often one-on-one meetings, we would just take a walk somewhere, you know, around the campus of where we were working. And is that a dog? No.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No?
The construction group is knocking at the door. So
Oh, we'll need to go. Yes. Well, we'll pause it. Yep.
Pause it, and then I'm going to come right back.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna wrap up with a final question about meaning and living a meaningful life. You've done a lot of meaningful things, I think, already in your short young life. And tell us what it means to you. What do you think a meaningful life looks like in your mind?
That's such a good question, friend. I feel like there is, I always go, a lot of my references is walking and art. So that's a reference point for me, and it's different, I think, for all of us in our own ways. But for me, those two mediums help me so much to access my heart and access my intuition. Like sometimes it's like, gut energy stuff that's just like, ooh, everything from like vision and passion and purpose, but also like injustice and things that don't feel right with the world or with how we're treating each other or with how we connect to the planet and things like that. And the heart being just how we learn from each other and love on each other and care for each other and listen to each other and tend to things that need tending to between each other. And so I think those realms, for me at least, where the art and the walking and what we were talking about earlier, just the protecting a lot of time for connection, that channel that where like it keeps that channel open, so that my gut, my intuition is talking to my heart and is moving with my mind, and like these things that to me feel so meaningful. So like I feel so close to my art and to my relationships and to the things that I'm moving out. And I mean, imperfectly, I'm just fumbling all the time, but there's something that, that the heart and the gut and just all these different experiences and relationships just tap into meaning all the time. And it's not always, it's never easy. Easy is such a strange word, but I think when we tap into that more and more, it just becomes all consuming in really beautiful ways. So
right. It sounds like being very intentional.
yes. Oh my gosh. And lots of practices and lots of really good people.
Cool.
So yes.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. And
Absolutely.
we will see you in Walk2Connect and online. And, you know, I will work at trying to keep those intentions in my own body and mind, and practicing more of discovering meaningful, meaningful relationships, and as you described, just kind of having that be part of everyday life, of having meaning.
Yes.
So.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. We can all lean in a little more in beautiful ways. So absolutely.
Very inspiring. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, my friend.
Bye-bye.